Okay guys, what's going on? In this tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create this circuit. So I'll explain what this is. This thing right here is a piezo buzzer. So the way you find this is you type in piezo buzzer and it's right there. Okay. This is a photoresistor. So we find this by typing in photoresistor. And this right here is a 10K resistor. I'm just going to put this in. We're going to type in 10K. Okay? And then you're just going to look at my diagram. It's pretty easy. This is polarized, so just make sure the positive goes over to the Arduino. The negative goes to the negative. And then you have to put a little resistor in here. So let me show you what's going on here. It's a little hard to see. This is going over to A0. A little hard to see that, but you guys get the idea. And then just make sure you power up your Arduino with your ports. And what you have now is you've created this. Okay? So that's what's going on. And what you're going to do is basically you're going to create a musical instrument. Let's see how this thing works. We're going to create the code in a second, but let's talk about what it does. So if you notice here, it says create a variable to hold the analog read value from the photoresistor. Next, create the variables for high and low values. You're going to set the initial values and the sensor variable to 1023 and the sensor high to 0. When you first run the program, you'll compare these numbers to the sensor's readings to find the real maximum and minimum value. So that's going to help us calibrate it. Okay, so that's the calibration. Name a constant. So we're going to go ahead and name LED pin. You use this as an indicator. Again, this is just the indicator that pin 13 is the one on the board actually. So that your LED itself on the board, the little, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little LED in here. It's right there. That thing will blink, okay? And then what you do is set the digital pin in the direction, turn it to high. So in the setup function, what we're going to do is set this up. Use a while loop for calibration. So it says the next steps will calibrate the sensor's maximum and minimum values. You'll use the while statement and run a loop for 5 seconds. The while loop runs until a certain condition is met. In this case, you're going to use the millis function to see if it's 5,000. And if it does, you're going to stop. Compare the sensor values. In this loop, you're going to read the values of the sensor. If the value is less than the sensor low, which is initially 1023, you'll update the variable. If it's greater than the sensor high, it gets updated to that. So this is to calibrate the photoresistor. Next, calibration is finished. When 5 seconds has passed, use a while loop. The while loop will end. Turn off the LED pin attached to pin 13, and you'll use the sensor high and low values just recorded to scale the frequency to the main part of your program. So here's the code. I'll show you what the code looks like. Well, you can actually look at it here. So this is setting up your values. This is setting up your void setup. And you're going to say, well, millis is less than 5,000. And what you're going to do is you're going to get the, if it's greater than the highest, you're going to set it. If it's less than the lowest, you're going to set it. Okay, so you're getting those values. And the code is right here. Let's get rid of these. We don't need them. At any point, feel free to pause the video, like here or something, so you could see how this is wired. And here's the code. We're not done with the code. This is just for the setup function. So let's take a look. So right here, what you're doing is this is a calibration loop. So you're just calibrating your sensor. If you don't do this, you won't get that accurate of a reading, okay? And let's see, well, we just have to close this off. Okay, the next part of the code, what we're going to do, again, you could pause the video here so you can get that done. The next part of the code, what we're going to do is the following. You're going to read and store the values of the sensor. Then you're going to map the sensor value to a frequency. You create a variable called pitch. The pitch is going to be mapped to a sensor value. Use sensor low and sensor high as bounds for the incoming values. For starting values, try 50 to 4,000. the numbers set these range of frequencies the Arduino will generate. So you're going to have to play around with those values, maybe a little bit lower on the low end or a little bit higher. So you'll have to mess around with that. In real life, you'd have to mess around with that. On the simulation, you don't. Next, you're going to call tone to play a sound. It takes 3 arguments, so we'll go ahead and see what that is. They're what pin to play, and what sound to play on, and what frequency to play it. And then you go ahead and make a delay function, and that lasts for 10 milliseconds. So when you first power on the Arduino, there'll be a 5-second window for you to calibrate the sensor. To do this, in order to do this is really important. You have to move your hand up and down on the photoresistor. When you do this, this will change it from absolute, the darkest you can actually get the sensor, to the lightest you could actually get the sensor, so you know the high and low values, the actual ones that you'll create in real life. Again, in the simulation, you can't really do this, right? Just know that when you're that loop in the setup, that's what it's doing. It's calibrating. So this is going to be the setup loop. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to type this code up and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, so here's the code. It's pretty simple. You grab the value from the sensor. What's in A0 here? You go ahead and you map the pitch from the sensor value to sensor value low, sensor value high, 50 to 4. So you're going to map these values to 50 to 4,000. You might have to play with that in real life to get the right sound. Again, we don't have this in real life right now, so you'd have to, if you have a kit, you'll have to play with it. And then the tone takes 3 things. So here are the 3 arguments it takes, which are the pin, frequency, and duration. So if you look here, so again, this is how it works. So you'll see that's the pin, that's the frequency, that's the pitch, which you got right here, and that's the duration. So that's 20 milliseconds. It's pretty quick. If you wanted it to go longer, you could obviously change that. That'll be, if you change this to like 200, it'll go for 0.2 of a second, so it'll be a lot longer. Which you really don't want to do with this because it's changing based on the light. So that's it. We can start the simulation. And we have a problem. Let's see here. I'm just going to go ahead and pause this and fix it. This is A0. I think I put AO by accident. And where is it? In line 22 and 23. Low has to be all capital. Okay? Let's try that again. Well, that hurt my ears, but that's the idea. Let's decrease my volume. And if you go in here, so this will change the tone of your thing. It sounds really weird, but yeah, that's it. Make sure when you do this, you're not wearing headphones like I just did, so you don't blow your eardrums out. All right, so that's the idea. You might want to go down to your panel here and turn the volume down. There you go. So you've made a buzzer. Now you could mess around with the sounds if you want, change the pitch. You could change these things. Maybe try 6,000. See what it does. That 6,000 is really high. So maybe try 1,000. See what that sounds like. So the lower you make this, like if you make 100, it'll sound really, really, really deep. That almost sounds like a bass line. But yeah, there's all kinds of cool stuff you could do with this. You could make music this way. It would be a weird way to make music, but it's possible. Okay, so I hope you found this tutorial interesting. You made a musical instrument, which is really neat. What you're going to do in the activities, you're going to modify this a bit, and I'm going to have you make one little extra instrument of your own using these ideas. You're going to do it with buttons, and you're going to make a little keyboard. So we're not going to do anything too crazy because we only have 1 or 2 class periods to do it, but that's what we'll do. So I hope you found this tutorial interesting. I hope you enjoyed it, and also I hope all your families are healthy and you guys are feeling well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you guys soon.